It's been a while since my last battle report, so let's give O-12 a bloody nose. Hey guys, it's Ryan, and you've asked for a Joan-led battle report, so today that's what you're going to get. A match on Mindwipe against vanilla O-12. This was done at a local games day in Falkirk in preparation for Infinity Rebellion tournament, one I won't be going to because of family commitments, but a prep day with 3 games, I'll definitely give that one a go. I played 2 games with Cosmoflot and then this list as well, which ultimately was a really fun list, and I'm just trying to figure out how to improve it. Me and my opponent took some good photos, and hopefully this can be the first of many battle reports back on the channel. So if you like the video, remember to like and subscribe for more, since it really helps me out. Now, let's go on to the lists. As promised, this is a Joan-led list, sort of. I refuse to play active lieutenants despite our good ones due to our lack of good chain of command. Coward? Yes I am, especially with how this game ended. This list started as a meme of, oh, Joan and Constantino is sitting in a tree, K-I-S-S-I-N-G. A joke that has basically been done to death since around Raven Eye dropped, but while it started as a joke, it does have some legs, as Joan is a phenomenal solo piece with NWI, TAC-aware, BS-15 and X-Visor with an AP Spitfire means that that's pretty good at fighting in general. I should also state the mission was Mindwipe. I thought it would have been unmasking, which this list would have been a bit better for, but my opponent and I were doing challenges at the game days for round 2 and that was what was to be played. We were both equally unprepared for, so it felt fair, but this would have been better done in missions where specialized specialists aren't really as required and there's less order sinks into specific tasks. I would not have run this in supplies, but I reckon this would be good on some missions including firefight. Anyway, Joan AP Spitfire I think complements FTO Constantinos really well, as he brings one of Military Order's few disco balls to let her move up the board unmolested as her boy toy throws down some Eclipse, fights skirmishers and does objectives with Whip 13 while she acts as the muscle. And please note, I was doing everything not to call her a muscle mummy there. My opponent in this game would be bringing a Wreaker, and plan A was to shoot it with the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre, but plan B was to melee it to death with Joan. Speaking of, the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre is my HMG for the list, and is to basically beat any arrow that Joan cannot beat due to range. The Knight of the Holy Sepulchre surprise attack can basically give it mimeticism, and it's a 3-card Monty, can be enough if you're smart enough to play the opponent really well. In this game he didn't do much, but he did a fair bit given what he had. This was a test on my list building philosophy of Military Order needs a HMG, and it turns out I did, and that the Sepulchre is a good choice. If I could find the points I would be interested in bringing a Teak, but I'm not sure that would be the best way to go about it. And also it really warps the list into something else. Doable probably. Anyway, he is a pseudo tag doing tag jobs. My opponent was maybe overcautious of him, but it was worth having him. A shame he has no anti-material weapons though. The rest of this list is sort of like my usual affair, a core fire team of a Blackfriar, Order Sergeant, Hacker who was my Uber Hacker, Crozier Paramedic, Knight Commander pretending to be a Crozier, and a random Crozier. This is usually pretty safe, but on this table it really struggled. The Blackfriar did do its job though, deterring a Varangian charge, but not really much else against a rampaging Raptor, just because of the ranges of that. If I was to do it again, I would probably have left her standing on to deter a lot more, but I played overcautious, which is generally the right thing to do with her. I also ran 2 Trinitarians, 1 SMG, 1 Killer Hacker to try out the Killer Hacker. In this game it didn't really do much, but I still want to try it out because I think it does have legs. The SMG one is still my favourite with Burst and PS6 with all the gubbins, so it's very good. Others are here for orders, as is the Raven Eye, as is I like this list a lot and will tweak it and run something similar in the future. Probably a Knight of Santiago who can do Constantino's job but better, but sans Disco Baller, which did really help. So my opponent was running vanilla O-12, and I don't do O-12 nor vanillas, but I do kind of like this list a lot. Its main pieces are the Raptor Killer Hacking Device, Welcome Back Garda, the Psychop Duo, Varangian, Nightshade and Wreaker Heavy Rocket Launcher, because you need something with teeth, and this one is a teethy boy. The Raptor Killer Hacking Device is something I really like as a heavy infantry drawer, and it's pretty decent as a secondary piece with NCO 360 degree visors, BS-14 and decent close range guns. I think this might be the best version with AP shock and a really good specialist for 41 points. It's not like Pupatechnica tier of peripheral nonsense, but this does put escort sergeants in its place. Its marker state also should let it move unaffected as needed. I think it is liable to crumble to a real gunfighter, but it should hold off knights and warbands until they hit melee if the impersonation state fails. The Wreaker was really good and conceals the nightshade to your opponent, as to be honest there is a lot of points and stuff that it's reasonable that this list might be 300 points and not realise it's actually 14 troopers. I like Wreakers and I am really jealous O-12 gets them and not military orders, but I say that most days with most armies. It won't hold up against most assaults, but I think it will delay with that adhesive launcher rifle and heavy shotgun to maybe leverage that surprise attack. I prefer Trins, but 15 points forgives a lot of sins. The Psycop duo isn't particularly sturdy duo. I feel like if I got my knights in there I would have cleared it out, but it's really nice with MSV1 Combat Instinct Multi-Marksman Rifle with +1 special dive on BS13 and min -3 with an innate specialist. That could do a lot, and the Thunderbolt turret could have slowed me down if I wasn't Pano. It's 30 points, but it's good to march up under the superior firepower of attack. The Combat Instinct Killer Hacker with a Disco Bowler is a really big duo piece similar in logic to Constantino's, do objective and lob out Eclipse to advance up. The Combat Instinct and Killer Hacking device does also a lot to counter hackers ignoring stealth and making any repeaters you have live. It's only a Killer Hacking device, but if you don't need the Disco Baller, then I think the Hacker could be incredible. Speaking of Hacker, the one that did give me the fear was the Cyberghost with his Hacking device plus and Pitcher. It would have really just dismantled my list if the Pitcher had gone down to hack Joan. I would have basically lost a lot of my capability. In saying that, it's BS11, so Pitcher's like 50-50, but the Whip 14 Hacker as an MO player is terrifying. At 21 points and not knowing O-12, is this like a common take? Because I kind of like it. A final important bit that I am actually going to talk about, O-12 gets 2 phenomenal attacks. This one is only BS13, yuck, but has BS attack AP and 2 chain rifles on all profiles, and BTS9 to make it stubborn to hack, and melee, and in a gunfight, it brings a downright terrifying Burst 3 AP heavy rocket launcher with the ability to gnaw cover on damage rolls with the saving roll -1, so that's basically a damage 5 roll with half your armor. That is not fun. Tags might be the only thing to handle it, but it's not likely. If it gets you inactive, it's going to hurt. Rightfully, I was fearful of this in my list, and realistically only had 2 models deal with it. The Knight of the Holy Sepulchre in what would have been a very fearful exchange, as I hoped that I would win, or I'd have to throw Joan in and just bully it in melee. Or any knights, but that's avoiding the AP chain rifles on the way in. The main player's set, let's move on to turn 1 and talk about this table. Turn 1, and I believe I lost the lieutenant role and went second, so I picked this side, although comparing the photos and looking at the table, it was equally bad on either side. But immediately you can see this table fails the Phoenix test 3 ways. Once along my DZ, once along my opponent's DZ, and once along the edge. This is sort of equally good and bad for my opponent since I'm Pano and he's O-12, which are the gun factions, but like this could be fixed with one whole shipping container on each edge. I do feel bad saying this, as locally I'm usually whinging about terrain like more scatter, but usually there's a good table underneath. This table was kind of fine once you got into the midfield a bit more, but the DZs, nah, that wasn't it. It needed like 40k scatter just to break it up. One gunner should not be able to beat the back line. I did have some cover, as did my opponent, but as you can see, when deploying in line with the consoles, which are 6 inches up the board, that's essentially 5-inch empty strip, which is a little rough. Now, gripe over for now, but I think I'll make a terrain video in the future to put all my wines in one place. Fortunately though, this effect is equally so the result when I get there could have equally have been flipped, just this was a table flaw that can have impacts. To be fair to my opponent, he did manage to get a full list hidden, including 2 40mm bases and 1 55mm base, and duos and stuff on tops. He does have 2 conga lines and models with his Monstrucker, Cyclops and Fuzzbot pretty close and within pulsar ranges. However, everything on his left hand side did have a bit more space, as his Raptor robot and Ruth mounted Cyberghost with a Varangian nearby is pretty well poised to take me on. That Cyberghost was in a good position to leverage his picture and could have caused me some hassle, and did result in me moving my hackables to the opposite side of the board, and I just in effect seeded this side of the board as I didn't really have the stuff to project threat. He doesn't know this, he's going first, but he sets up pretty competently with a nice hidden tag with the Yud bot nearby and his nightshade somewhere around here, and with the Moonraker effectively hiding his nightshade and leaving me wondering what that could be in O-12. To Vidox or something, I have no idea. It presented me with a reasonably challenging board to attack. As I said, to avoid being hacked, I deployed Joan and Konstantinos over on the left side, just as this was an easier angle to take with her, and eventually he would put down the Wreaker as his reserve, and I mean, I'd do it again, as the Wreaker versus Joan is not a bad fight for me. Anyway, the Fungazi is flashing off his Katiga, with my Raven Eye sort of here, as well as, since I don't really have that many options. The core fire team in the Mulebot is basically cramped off in this building. Knowing what I know and knowing my opponent doesn't have guided missile launcher, I would have probably packed them all up here prone, since honestly it probably would have been safer. The Warcore here is a sacrificial ARO, and finally I put my Knight of the Holy Sepulchre down as my reserve, my left side, with the leftmost one being the legitimate one. Oh, and my two Trinitarians, the boarding shotgun goes down in front of the tower and the second one goes around the corner from the button, capable of grabbing it as needed. Everything locked down and should be good to weather an assault. Speaking of, O-12 first turn is rather effective, to be honest, with my core prone to respect all the hell out of that Wreaker, Robot and Cygos. I think this was maybe a bad call for me, but who knows. He decides to take that side that I've ceded to him and march the Raptor up with NCO and his Uber Hacker order to get the objective button and press it, revealing my middle server as the AI console. He decides to tuck in as well, which is also fair, but we also learn that I can't steal it back, so I kind of just leave him to it on my turn. With one objective achieved, he decides to build out his defenses, deploying his Monstrucker's AP rifle back here, and would move his Psychop fire team up as well, and goes ahead and drops a Thunderbolt turret on this building, which is going to be a smidge of an issue. He develops the Roadbot up to a better position, but doesn't make the run I'm expecting him to. His Varangian impetuous up the board, but not as far as I think he wanted to, as he realised the Blackfriar was MSV2 and Albedo and not a mimetic gunfighter, so he decides to hold him back for now in the central building. This is all starting to surround my Trinitarian, so they are probably sweating bullets. I also lose a Fungazi to the Wreaker, but really that's not a huge deal. My turn 1, I formulate that I need to get a button push. Not impossible, it's only under the eyes of a flash pulse bot and a turret. So I decide to activate Joan and Konstantinos and decide to march them up and deal with the flash pulse bot, and either get Konstantino or a Trinitarian to deal with the button. My initial activation goes really well. Joan activates, moves out a bit with Konstantinos, and eventually the Thunderbolt turret engages on like order 2, and it goes down pretty much in one burst. Honestly, this is the reason why I don't really think much of turrets. It's easy to get burst 4 or more on them, find a good range band, and just put them down in a volley. I moved the duo up further to take on the Flash Pulse bot and hopefully slay it, but Joan's gun starts throwing wet noodles. I get stunned on Joan and decide to Disco Baller and let the Group 2 Trin do it as I get stunned for the trouble, but the template does go down. The Trinitarian runs across and gets me at point and reveals his AI is the left console, which in hindsight is 100% the best outcome for me. Also, tangent, that Flash Pulse bot stunned like 60, 70 odd points worth of stuff, and so he really earned his paycheck. Finally, to cap off the turn, I would retreat Joan and Konstantinos into full cover and camo the Trinitarian, so that turn 2 and 3 I can advance and try to score. I also stand up my Blackfriar to project some power. My opponent's turn 2 is pretty action-packed, and I'm not 100% certain of this order, but I'm sure this was the order of the run. So the Impersonation State Raptor acts to try and destroy my server, now revealed as the center one. So he marches up and attempts to remove it, but he does generate some arrows for his trouble. I don't arrow with my Blackfriar, she couldn't see him, but he does get close enough to be in my Mulebot zone of control, and here he tries to do two things. One, brain fry my Order Sergeant and blast the server. So he spends an order on revealing, pouring the full Trinity into my Order Sergeant as I attempt to isolate him, and my middle Trin reveals in an attempt to knock a wound off him and try to kill a very thorny piece. Unfortunately, I roll like an 18 for my Trinity, and my isolation roll wasn't much better on like 15, and all three Trinities hit and put my Order Sergeant out of the game. A couple of mistakes were made here by me. One, I revealed my Trin to a marker. I completely didn't realise. We talked about it though, and I agreed I probably would have delayed him anyway. Like, my intent was to make him waste an order either hacking me and not the console. It was a bad decision generally on my behalf, but we did play it correctly. Two, I should have probably used my boarding shotgun, as I would have caught him within my 8-inch band, or I would have dropped to mine and try and deal a wound much easier than hoping a Trinity would get through, even if it was on 16s. That way I would have forced the dogs, or maybe hopefully thrown under an 18. So after this exchange, I'm not in a good position, with my only real hacker dead and my other hacker revealed out of cover and technically with a template bot, about 8 inches from me. So he smartly spends one order to move up and lay down a heavy flamethrower, and I move to dodge, and my dice throw not a good number, and my Trinitarian is turned into toasted Catholics. He spends a third order here, barely dipping into his order pool at this point between the NCO and Uber hacker, and destroys the server dead, netting him 3 points, and now making it very hard for me to win. To continue his dominance, he decides to march his Wreaker up the stairs and get a vantage point against a lot of my movable space. A good decision that I would have struggled to remove or without throwing Joan and the Sepulchre at him. In doing so, we get an AR roll from Joan and the Blackfriar, and this begins the wildest sequence of events I've had for a while. Here you can see that my position of Joan left me open to this attack. Really, this is one of the flaws that I'm looking at and going, what, that was on me. This could have been avoided, but I wanted to save some movement in the next turn, but it's going to cost me some shots. Joan. So, order 1 of the gunfight, 2 bursts goes into Joan and 1 goes into the Blackfriar, and I think Joan takes a hit and gets the opportunity to guts, but doesn't, as I think I discussed with him and another player, and I don't think going prone will help me, as I think he can see right to the back of my base. I think I could have maybe guts to the wall, but I don't think I would have been fully in, so I don't really get to guts since I can't improve cover. At this point, I think the Blackfriar maybe puts a wound on the Wreaker, which it was nice, but again, it's only a singular wound. Second order goes better, and Joan puts a wound on the Wreaker, but at this point has now definitely at least taken a wound from either this exchange or the last one. The Blackfriar, it doesn't do damage here. This AP heavy rocket launcher +1 damage is forcing some saves against like damage 5 plus half armor, so I'm really saving at best on 7s. And so for the third or fourth order in this exchange, I think he makes the right decision to dedicate and fire all shots into Joan, and decides to ignore the Blackfriar, and this would weirdly work out the best for both of us. Joan fails her dodge and doesn't do well and eats 2 hits. I think I make 1 armor save, but I fail 2 with the continuous damage going from 1 wound to left to NWI, and then NWI to dead. Now, a great victory for my opponent. My brick and main server killer is dead, and I'm going to struggle getting to his DZ. However, the Blackfriar hits and does 1 wound against a PS roll of 12. And he rolls a 17, putting the Wreaker unconscious. Unlucky, yes, but he has a Yud bot nearby, so fair enough. And then he rolls an 18, putting the thing into unconscious level 2. Then, because misery loves company, he fails a third roll with a 15 or something, and it kills the Wreaker to death. In a single order, 96 points worth of models, a sixth of what was on the table, have been wiped off due to continuous damage burn through. And this is why I'm fucking terrified of heavy rocket launchers. He is still winning, but now the game has kind of changed. I have the biggest gun, which only serious attrition will put down, but also everything is really far away from the servers. So the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre can be treated and the camo can be discovered. So it's still like anyone's game. Probably more his, to be honest, but I can see a way to get a draw. Some more positioning happens, but nothing major. I maybe lose a war core at this point, or maybe that's next turn, but it's there and it doesn't really do much. My turn 2 is one of panic and a concerted effort to shape the game into a draw round 3. I use most of my command tokens to flip everything into group 1, bar one of the bots, since he has murderized enough things to clear spaces. So in order to get some consoles, I need to clear out 2 camo markers, 2 Cyclops, start making a dent on what's left in the backfield, and it sort of goes to plan. Or rather, I start making a good start, advancing the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre with NCO, I think to leverage the surprise attack weirdly on a rifle turret. as he guessed right, but promptly that turret was sent to the Shadow Realm. Not a great thing, so I keep moving up the extreme flank, but it turns out this camo marker was in fact a mine, I should have guessed, but it had a big enough range to thwack me for 1 wound after a move, not realising that it could see me. That was not fun. Another order kind of spent with that one. So next order, trying to move up and fight what turns out to be a Wreaker, and eventually that goes down to heavy pistol fire. Unfortunately, that leaves me with not that many orders left, and I choose to set up the Blackfriar to deal with the Raptor's potential third assault and deny his Varangian a little more movement. And next turn, I gotta play the best goddamn Infinity of my life just to get a draw. My opponent's turn 3, it's his game to lose, so he dives straight into another Raptor assault. This time he duels with my Blackfriar, and I tangle for maybe an order before us deciding to duck and basically give him free runs, which in hindsight was another bad choice I made. There's just so many this game. He marches up, fights and kills the War Core. I at some point made the decision to dodge my core fire team, including the Lieutenant, forgetting that he should not do that. He breaks Hollow Mask. By the time I realised this, I have declared it and rolled it and then realised it. So yeah, pretty much I'm just announcing which one my Lieutenant is. So basically now he can finish the job knocking down the middle server and proceeds to spend 3 orders, eventually putting me into loss of Lieutenant, and with that probably winning the game. Like, I cannot effectively get a point with everyone irregular and with at most 4 orders to 1 trooper thanks to Warhorse on the Night of the Holies of Poker and 2 command tokens. Maybe at best I can score a console, but effectively it is still a loss, and this isn't a tournament, so we can save some time and chat things over. That is unfortunately a 9-1 win to O-12. So what went wrong and what went right? Well, all things considered, I deployed as well as I could have, given that each DZ had a 6-inch stripe that was just not usable. I could have swapped the bot down from the top and put my Lieutenant up there. That would have probably prevented loss of Lieutenant turn 3 and maybe gotten a draw. I whinge about tables enough, I'm tempted to do a video on it sometime in the future. Besides that, I let my Blackfriar handle what could have been better range bands. I just didn't really stand her up as much. So I mean, it was a bit of a waste. I did really fear the road ball and the Wreaker, even if I could have thrown hands fairly well, but probably lost in the end. The hackables being away from the hackers and having their own lanes to run down worked. Speaking of them, the lists between players were pretty comparable, as was our skill. We played a few times and it has been pretty close each time, coming down to sort of these final runs after a lot of our power is spent. To be fair, I did make mistakes, but this felt like a pretty fair match since both our lists weren't really for Mindwipe. We both had similar issues with gunfighting, and generally it was similar powers. I think his list was a smidge better, but overall fairly comparable. However, I think turn 3 was nearly a given I ceded so much of the board to his Raptor, and really I should have just left the Blackfriar standing to harass him more, but I was scared of the long fire lanes that the Wreaker might deploy against me and wipe out the Blackfriar and then just repeat what happened anyway. So maybe I should have really just left it up there and deployed better, and the Raptor runs might have been less damaging. Finally, the reason I think it played out the way it did was a combo of me being lazy, not better hiding Joan, and maybe just accepting my repeater coverage would be crap, and better deployment of my core, and generally not being able to affect the table as much as I'd like. Basically, I ceded so much that it really went against me. I just didn't put up a fight, and a multi-rifle tore through my backfield. Sometimes it just happens. You have bad days. Your opponent has really good days. This is not to say my opponent did not play well and was only in my issues that got him the win. He did do well. He is a good player. He saw options and took them, and I was on the back foot the entire game. I think I want to play him again with a similar list, a better mission and table next time, but I think I will take Constantinos out of the list and bring a Knight of the Santiago killer hacking device, who I think will provide more to Joan, and I can look to drop other elements to make the list a bit better. So that was my video on a Joan-led battle report as a sort of 1,000 subscriber video, but not really a full celebration. I just wanted to do something different, and I want more battle reports. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I can make a more entertaining one next time, and maybe actually win. Been on a bit of a losing streak recently with Cosmoflot, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, if you liked the video, remember to like and subscribe for more, and as always, thank you so much for watching.